Time is 7:02. We will call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will start with now roll call.
All right, Robert Kelly.
Karen Quinn.
Tim DeBrio.
Owen Friend Gray.
Michael Kelly.
Jeffrey Morrison.
Charlotte Fife.
Jill Eldridge. Danielle Wolf.
Donna Dennis is excused, and at this time, we have not heard from Sandra Jones. We have a quorum, so at this point in time, I will open the floor to any public comment. Seeing none, we will get going with the budget presentations. Can we please start with the Conservation Commission?
Good evening. My name is Sam DeMar.
Sorry, Sam, could you pull the microphone just a little closer?
Let's make sure people get.
Could you just pull the microphone closer, sir? Just so everybody on listening at home can hear you. Thank you. That'll do. There we go. Yeah.
Whatever. My name is Sam DeMar. I chair the Conservation Commission with our big budget of around $2,000. The only major changes that we're making was an amount in there for trail maintenance. We're going to leave about 200 in that and transfer I think it was 250 up to the river crossing signs. I want to put another one up. I'm trying to put one up across the Pawtuckaway River crossing down on 156 on Raymond Road. I think I got money in the budget this year to do that, and then one next year on the Little River across Route 4, just so people can aware that they are protected rivers. The state doesn't give me any money for that, so we've got to take it out of our budget. As far as, we had $300 in there for conferences and training, and 5 of us went to the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions meeting the 2nd of November, and that, we're planning on doing that again next year. And there's also another conference that I haven't been able to make because of other commitments in April. It's the Saving Special Places Conference, which will be in Concord this year. It's the Friday, I think it's the 3rd Friday in April up at the Grapponi Center. And I expect that'll be about $60 a head. So we're going to have to split up stuff, some go to one, some go to the other. Most of the rest of the stuff is about the same. I was going to add, I think it was $200 about one of the earlier line items, and I forgot what it is at this point.
It would help you in one of those folders. You can get your printout.
Yep. Okay. Printing. We're looking at putting together a booklet on some of the activities around town, including the hiking trails, which are maintained by the Conservation Commission and the Trails Committee. So we're looking to do about 200 for that. And we will charge people enough so that as the money comes in, it'll be like a revolving account. When we get down so low, then we'll order another few books to, so we can sell them again. I think we're including the historic district in town, the square, probably something on the cemeteries and, historical society and things like that. We've been working with some of those people to get all this information in one booklet. We're hoping to sell it for maybe $5 a piece or something like that.
Nice.
Other than that, I think it's pretty much the same. Okay, we are gonna need, where are we? We've got, one of the meters that we have for our water testing has been on the fritz this year, so we're gonna have to order another one of those. We're hoping to get a grant to at least cover, at least half the cost of the thing, and then the rest will come out of our budget. Any questions? Yes, sir. Yes,
Hi,
sir.
Sam.
Hi.
I'm Jill. I'm a conservation professional during the day, so thank you for the work you do. I'm curious, how many easements does the town of town of Nottingham hold any conservation easements?
What was that?
Does the town of Nottingham hold any conservation easements?
Yes.
How many?
Let's see, I'm trying to think now. Okay, we got, we have conservation easements on a number of properties. The easements, some of them are held by land trusts, such as the Forest Society, which holds the easement on Mulligan Forest. They also hold the easement on the Fernal property on Deerfield Road for the Fred and Helen Fernal property. There are 3 easements over just off the square that are held by Southeast Land Trust, including the Harvey property, which also extends down into Epping. We've got the Kennard Forest on Kennard Road, 30-acre piece, and I think Bear Paw holds the easement, but we bought the land, and we have trails on it. There's the Kimball Family Forest, which Bear Paw owns, and we were the backup easement holder,
Executory interest?
the executory interest in it to begin with, because it was owned by the Kimball family, and then the Kimball family gave it to Bear Paw, who was the easement holder. So we kind of fell into that one as the monitoring that. We monitor the easements over on the Mendham's Landing. There's 2 sections over there. There's that's Route 4.
And does the town have a policy to monitor all of its easements and fee acquisitions?
All the ones that we are the easement holder on. We have to, if the easement holder on one that we're an executory interest, it's our duty to make sure that they do their job.
And are they adequately blazed and placarded?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's the Tenenco property, which is held by, we hold the easement on one section of that, on Case Road, and there's NRCS holds part of one, and trying to think who else, but there are other easement holders there.
I have just one more question. Does the Conservation Commission have a stewardship or legal defense fund for the easements that they hold? Does the Conservation Commission have a stewardship or legal defense fund for the easements that they hold?
Well, we have the conservation fund, and that's the only thing we have that, we can protect, use. I checked our books from last year, and at this point, we had $640,000 $45,000 and some odd dollars in the fund. I don't know what's come in, because we get the 100% of the current use land change tax. I haven't checked to see what that is at this point, but this is adequate enough. We're looking at three easements at this point. Two are just got notified by Southeast Land Trust. I think they're going to hold the easements on a property on Deerfield Road and one on Raymond Road. I thought it was one easement to begin with, because two people from South contacted me, and I'm probably meeting with them, the third Monday of this month at our regular meeting. Let's see what else. There's the Shippey Rice easement on Garland Road, which is held by Bear Paw. Bear Paw owns the property across the street, the North River Preserve, and I think we're the backup easement. I don't know. Not sure who's the backup easement, or the easement holder on that one. They tried to get the town to buy it, but the town wasn't interested.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay. Shuffled my papers and lost my agenda. Library. Stuff in here. I won't. Okay.
I'll
Give us
lean
just
forward.
Second, we will find maybe where we are. There we go. Library's third page in our packet. Floor
Good
is yours.
evening, I'm Jen Phillips, I'm one of the trustees, and this is Amanda Stevens, the interim library director. We'll share the mic. So the library's budget has three components on your worksheets, I think. There should be a salary line, there should be an operations line, and there should be a telephone line. We have the numbers for two of those, the salary and the operating budget. The phone comes from the town. I'm happy to answer, but it's three lines, that's all I know. And I can tell you what they link to, but that's it.
Okay.
So I guess my question to you is, do you want me to start with the salary line or the operations line?
Whatever you want.
Okay, I'll start with the salary line then. I will let you know the same thing that I let the Board of Selectmen know. This was actually internally kind of controversial. We have decided not to request budget for a full-time director back to our normal hours this year, meaning 2025. It will be back on our agenda for the year following. But we decided internally, tactically, that we need to get this budget passed this year. And so we're keeping our request as low as humanly possible. The only increase that we have on the salary line is primarily to shift tasks that the trustees have been doing back to the library. It should be enough hours to cover that. One of the reasons that we've been able to do this so smoothly is that myself and some of the other trustees have been putting in an awful lot of additional hours over and above our trustee duties to help the library continue to function. So I guess I'm going to take a breath there and see if you have any questions about that.
And that's this note on the bottom. I'll just read it for people that don't have the page in front of them. It says, this number retains our part-time interim director. The increase from default, 160K, so plus 8,500 is primarily driven by a small increase in the number of her hours per week in an effort to move the day-to-day work the trustees took on back over to the director, along with small increases for the staff.
Correct. Okay.
So
oh,
the
go ahead.
the difference then is $8,500.
Correct.
Is the increase in salaries, is it?
Correct.
Okay.
For the appropriations, or the operations budget, our appropriation this year was 48, and this, you should have all received a worksheet from Ellen.
It's on the
that
page
shows-
right after the printout. Yeah.
Page? Thank you.
I have mentioned a number of times in prior years that most of our expenses are fixed. We have to pay for our alarm system, and those costs have gone up. We have to pay for our cleaning. We have to pay for the cataloging system. Then PO box and postage, like, these are all, our technology line is for things like printer ink and paper and things like that. The book budget, materials, is the one that is most discretionary, and even that is starting to become less and less discretionary because of the fee that we pay to New Hampshire Downloadable Books. New Hampshire Downloadable Books is our ebook subscription that is, it's a state program, right? And we belong to the state program. They look at our usage statistics and checkouts and things like that, and they tell us what we owe them. This is not something that we can say, oh, we want fewer books next year and just charge us less. Doesn't work that way. They tell us how much we pay each year. And that number has gone up about 30%. And it now equates to nearly a quarter of our book budget. We have ebook usage statistics comparable to libraries much larger than ours. We have a very heavy readership in this town.
It's a good thing to hear.
It is, but
Except it's expensive,
we pay.
apparently.
Yeah. So I guess I'll take a quick pause and see if you have any questions. Oh, water testing. So in our research and work to figure out where the leach field was in order to prep for the parking lot, we learned that, as I'm sure all of you know, our leach field had failed and our septic got replaced. In that process, we had to submit the septic design to the state. That triggered DES coming out and telling us that we needed to get our water system into compliance. So we now are on a quarterly water testing regimen. And that was not something that we budgeted for last year, and the costs of the water program total thus far has been $3,450.97. That is for the setup, the initial water test. Then we learned that we had a negative test. We had to filter service, cap the old well, do a chlorination shock, put screen repairs in. So it's been an interesting maintenance year at the library.
You said that was DES that required it?
Yes.
So where is that in the budget?
You'll see that it came out of our miscellaneous line. We had budgeted $500. Our actual to year-to-date is $3,809.
And so under that miscellaneous, that's where you're putting the water testing moving forward is coming out of miscellaneous?
No, moving forward, it will come
Okay.
out of maintenance.
Okay. Got it, I see. Thank you.
And actually, I'm going to revise my answer there. The initial setup came out of miscellaneous, then we moved it to maintenance. That's why the maintenance line is at 6,500.
Overdrawn,
Yeah.
Okay.
Our book budget 2 years ago was $21,000. This last year, was at 17. It's the only place that we can pull from to do all of these other building maintenance things that we have.
I know the rec department will be up in a minute, but I know they've seen a huge increase in participation with the programs. It sounds like the library has too.
I will let Amanda talk about the program
I guess, which
participation.
age groups do you see that increase with?
Definitely the 18 and under, the children's. We've had an explosion in terms of participation, and the numbers have just increased every time we do a new programming session, which is like 6 weeks in length, but then we have a couple weeks in between. It's just, it keeps going up and up.
We had to move to a, well, you're going to have to explain the system. Is it a lottery system for signups? I don't understand it. But they had to change their sign-up system because people kept,
Right, so in order to make it somewhat equitable, if there are students that haven't participated in the past, we give them first dibs.
And then are there fees?
No fees
we are
whatsoever.
prohibited by law from charging for anything. All libraries shall remain forever free.
I had to ask.
Somebody was gonna ask.
Yeah, I've got the statute number if you need that.
No.
We'll take your word for it.
Statutes.
You just give a brief example of, I'm just curious what the programs are. I knew what they used to be a few years ago, but just for our education.
Well, right now, between the summer reading program, all different types of things going on. But during the school year, we have a STEAM club, we have Lego club. We just started a middle school group. We have BYG for older kids. And then we always have these specials that attract the big numbers.
And you've got the homeschool group.
Yep, the homeschool group just started recently, the past couple months, and that seems to be growing. Once a month, they come along and, participate in a special activity.
And then for adults, there are book clubs, 2 book clubs, and mahjong, a coffee hour. And those are sometimes with Historical Society, like there was a presentation on General Lafayette when the anniversary of when he made his march through Nottingham. Things like that.
Regular story hour.
And regular
Right.
story hours, yeah.
And you have the holiday,
Several times a week, yes.
the holiday celebrations, whether it's Easter, Halloween.
I think, don't they do the Polar Express thing?
Mhm.
Yeah, the holiday season.
I had a question about the alarm system.
Okay, I'll try and answer it.
So we had budgeted for $1,000, spent close to 1,600. Is that something that could have been foreseen coming down the line, or did we just get slapped with a 60% higher bill?
I
Or
have a feeling that was a maintenance issue every once in a while.
a service call maybe, or
Yeah,
something
there were
like
a
that?
couple service
Couple
calls.
Because when we lose power, we don't have a generator. So when we lose power, it can fry things. And the alarm system is the number 1 thing that we have to make service calls on.
You
Like a
lose,
surge protector or something on it? Is it tied into it?
It's built into the.
Oh, into the panel?
Yes.
Yeah, that's usually how they are nowadays. It's built
There's
into
a
it.
battery backup in it, but something happens to that. And
And we've had some issues with windows and doors too, not completely shutting
Shutting, or the
correctly,
wind,
and
you
that's
see the wind's
triggered.
howling now, so it might be tripping it.
And that speaks to a maintenance issue. Some of those windows are downstairs and they've kind of gotten out of square, I guess. Something's, and so we need to get the windows addressed in order for the alarm not to get triggered. So it's like owning a home, it's never ending.
never,
True.
no
I just have
problem.
one quick question. How's the elevator?
The lift, the emergency lift is working. I believe the annual test is Thursday. If you want to come and witness the annual test.
I am off
It's-
Thursday.
Actually, it's tomorrow. Oh,
Wednesday.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry, it's tomorrow. So if anyone wants to
That's
come.
been a work in
Yes, that's,
but hopefully it's behind us.
I remember a few years ago, there was some concerns about like a trip hazard on the sidewalk. Is the sidewalk been,
Yes, we had the front sidewalk, which had this was not a freeze-thaw issue, it was a drought flooding issue. When the drought, we had those couple of summers that were so dry, it compacted the dirt underneath. When it did rain, and that created cavities, when it did rain, it caused it to come out of alignment. We paid to have Erickson Foundations come out to do polyjacking, which is a foam that fills those cavities up and just lifts it to the right level. And it has worked beautifully. It was the least expensive option, allowed us to preserve the concrete, which is kind of nice. We need to have them come out again, though, because the repair of the electric line from that led to the wellhead, when that happened, they had to dig the dirt, and it was just enough pressure to take another part of that sidewalk out of alignment. It's on the list. And probably we would wait until next spring to see what it looks like, because you don't want to do anything right before it starts snowing.
Frost, yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Jen, can you speak to the monument?
I can. I'm not sure which aspect. We were so thrilled that the highway department was able to replace our septic system. That saved the town thousands of dollars. One of the things that they had to do during that was to remove the flagpole and the monument, because they were right on the edge of the available space for the new leach field. The monument sat on the edge of our driveway, and we had it placed in the front of the library, closer to the building, and just off of the pathway. The cost for that, it was $2,788 to have the monument placed, which was a little bit more than we had anticipated. What other questions?
I mean, I don't think that was something that
Oh,
had
it was
been
not
budgeted,
something
though,
we
so
budgeted.
just
Okay.
another unexpected cost.
Yes,
And
it was
that's
another
fine.
unexpected cost, a significant one.
And the highway department didn't have the equipment to do
No,
that.
you need, so something that large and heavy had to be professionally set by.
Like a crane or something?
Pardon me?
Was it a crane that came in?
I don't know.
I wasn't
there.
present either.
Dan was there, made sure that everything got set up properly. But yeah, they have specialized equipment to move, and to make sure that it's not damaged. You don't think about granite getting damaged, but it can. So we had the monument placed and set. They had to sink it down into the ground fairly substantially. And then the bench that goes along with it. Actually, two monuments, technically.
I suppose I could look it up, but does anybody know how many square feet that building is?
The library?
Yeah.
Do you know? I don't know. How many square feet the building is?
Take a measurement.
I believe it's like around 5,000, both floors.
Upper and lower.
Is the flagpole gonna get replaced?
Yes.
You know? Yeah, more
So we're
proportional.
waiting until next spring when we see how the landscaping kind of goes. We've had so many moving parts, literally and figuratively, that trying to put a flagpole in when we don't really know what the landscaping will look like seemed imprudent. Yeah. I am going to brag a bit about Amanda's grant that she secured for the ADA sensory garden out back, because that allowed us to fix another trip hazard around the back. We had about a 2-inch dip from the back door to the, I don't know, kind of flagstones that were out there. And in order to make it an ADA accessible garden, the whole pathway out to the garden has to be compliant. And the grant that she got allowed us to, along with some donation money, bring that up to a flush threshold. So that is no longer a trip hazard, which was one of the things that was identified in the list from the Joint Loss Committee that went around our building and found lots of issues.
Are we ADA compliant now?
No. We have, so we have, not all of our exits are compliant yet.
Yep.
The front is no longer a trip hazard. We can, have people go out the back, without a trip hazard. It meets ADA requirements. The two other exits, the upstairs one, the ramp is falling apart. It's, made of wood, and it's literally has mushrooms growing on it. The handrail collapsed a couple of weeks ago. We had that replaced. We can reuse the replacement handrails when we eventually replace the whole ramp. But you can't have a wood ramp and have it be appropriate forever for ADA. It's going to deteriorate, it's gonna come out of alignment, which it has. We also discovered that it's not correctly secured to the building, and some other stuff. So that one's an issue. Then on the other side, the lower level exit, again, we've got about a 2-inch drop from the doorway down to that's out of compliance right there. You have to have a flush threshold. The landing area, outside of the exit is flagstones, and then, the steps that lead up to the front of the building for an emergency exit are just stones that are kind of pushed into the ground. They get wobbly very quickly when it rains, and slick. Yeah, oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
If it's on this topic, please go ahead. I don't get it.
Oh, I was just
Yeah,
saying, that the
I had a
ramp was
question
like,
too.
if you're gonna replace it, I just recommend AZIC. It's a lot more money, but boy, it lasts forever. It's
is
just
that
well,
like a Trex thing?
Yes.
Yes, that's
It's
what
just
we're
well
looking.
worth it.
We are looking into, we have to make sure that we have the right one that is ADA compliant for slip resistance.
Oh, right, it
So
makes-
there's a little bit.
They make different ones.
Right.
You can get them in different grades.
little grit or something, a little gritty.
So that is definitely, we
Okay.
don't want to be here.
Doing it all over again.
It seems like I know we're just talking this year, but the proposed is pretty high, but it sounds like that there's a lot of items that need to be addressed down there.
It's a matter of
Is it
figuring
like
out.
10, 15 items or?
You know, we have to break it out. We have to figure out how we do these things in
Yeah,
stages.
I know we're just talking about this year, but just
Well, these-
looking down the road, it's more and more and more.
I am
It
supposed
raises
to be in
concerns.
front of CIP next Monday, to talk about exactly this, like what is your long-term
Yep.
plan to get this stuff fixed? Because right now, we do not have the ability to safely evacuate someone from the lower level of the building in the event of a fully engulfed building.
That doesn't sound good.
It doesn't. And I won't go so far as to say it keeps me up at night, but it bothers me. Because the back, we can get them out the back, but it's completely surrounded by trees.
Yep.
And, you know, you've got.
Scenarios.
Exactly.
Yep.
So we have to figure it out. We have to figure out a way to do it in stages so that it is not, you know.
Right, stickle shocker.
Exactly. And go from there and work together to figure out what that is, what that looks like.
I may be thinking out loud here too, but I'm wondering what part our maintenance, I don't even know what his exact title is, Alan Trant, has in this, because I realize now that he hasn't come to a CIP meeting, he hasn't been invited, and would he possibly be doing the work for something like the handicap ramp? And what part does that general maintenance?
I can't answer that question.
I might be able to help. Okay. So, that's on the agenda for Thursday. So he presented.
So Alan will be,
I don't know if Alan will be here.
I know
He
he
presented to the
presented to
select
you,
board,
yeah.
and Alan will be here on Thursday to talk about it, but he presented to us, it was $260,000, I believe, in general maintenance repairs for not just the library, but the community center, the Dane building, the superintendent's office, like all of these buildings.
Yeah.
And this isn't like stuff that is like huge emergencies. This is like maintenance.
Yeah.
Right, and he had a 1 to 3 year plan and then
Yeah.
a 3 to 7 year plan. I thought he broke it down.
Yeah, so we're gonna go
Darn
over,
well,
I
yeah,
think,
yeah.
again, Ellen will be presenting it, but that, the library pieces are, I mean, it's just,
The
It's a
library
smaller part of
pieces
it,
were,
but-
actually, I wish he had talked to me because there were a lot I could have added to his list, but, one of the things that caught my attention was that he felt strongly that the, parking lot across the street needs to be addressed. Well, that dumps water right onto our parking lot. It's part of the reason that we have erosion. So you almost have to look at those two lots together. Because if that gets changed and it puts more water on ours or puts it in a different spot, we've actually compounded a problem instead of solving one.
right, and I think that we'd have to pay for engineering of that lot and everything anyway, so
That
that
and-
would be part of that.
I don't know how the gutters are on those buildings across the street, that dumps a lot of water, if you can maybe shed some of it that way using, you know, gutters or pipe.
Well, that should have been looked at anyway with the, on the library portion, because didn't we all pay for engineers to
We paid for a
examine,
study.
examine that and have a study done?
And that's what led to the question about where the leach
Appreciate
field
it.
was.
Yep.
Gotta make money.
Yep. Careful watching. Yep, all right. And then it will involve the state as well, because we're on state road.
Question on the parking lot then, where does the library stand with the parking lot? So I think we had
So-
a study or two done
It's
and.
funny you should ask. I can shed some additional light on the parking lot situation. When we were flagged by DES to have our water system tested, they noted that our wellhead was 30 feet from the edge of our parking lot, which means the edge of our existing parking lot is in the sanitary protection zone of our well. The design possibility for the horseshoe shape would have
Turn mine
taken
off,
it
too.
closer to the wellhead. It is unlikely that we would get permission to do that, and even if we did, having been through a negative test, I don't think that we would want the edge of a parking lot closer to our wellhead. So the horseshoe design, as far as we are able to determine, is off the table.
So it means going back to design again?
No, it
No.
means that we would probably be looking at repaving the existing lot and with the hopes, please, 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 pave the other lot, the lower lot, the old police station, whatever we're gonna call it. Because right now what happens is when it is rainy or snowy or muddy, people don't use that. I don't know, if they park across the street and get in trouble, that's happened a couple of times, that they, you know, the excess has parked over there and blocked doors, I think, of the old fire station? I don't know all the names of the old buildings over there, but, basically there were complaints, you're parking in our lot, we can't get in and out, and we need more parking in this town, it sounds, you know, 700 people at the, yeah. So, having some additional parking there would be awesome, having that lower lot
That lower
paved.
lot. How many cars could the lower lot handle?
The lower lot, it depends on how they park. Since it's just a mud square, people park one
Right.
way and then people come and go and they don't line up nicely.
And it's not plowed,
It's not plowed in the winter, no,
so you can't even park there if you
no.
want.
I'm sorry, you had a question.
No, that's okay. I'll admit, I'm impressed how much you know about wellheads and parking lots and water flow and erosion.
It's been a fun year.
My expertise is not quite in that area. Mine is more in staff management. So I'd like to go back to what you said at the beginning of your presentation, that, to use your words, I believe it was a tactical decision that you chose to maintain a part-time interim director, but also try to shift some responsibilities back to that director, which tells me that what you've been doing has not been working for you. So With respect to your plan, I'd like to just ask you if you feel confident in your abilities to continue to manage through the next year or more under what you've devised.
So if I'm understanding your question correctly, you want me to confirm that the trustees feel okay with those additional hours being enough?
Yes.
I think we did. I think we hashed that out. I mean,
You'd love more.
it is not ideal.
But you
I
feel
will
like you
tell
have a
you.
plan for this year,
Yes.
and here you go.
Yeah, but Amanda, I will tell you that it has been extraordinarily helpful to have a director, an interim director, who had prior director experience. She was able to hit the ground running, and we've got a very tight, well-working team, I think. You want to add anything? She's tired of seeing me in her office. That's really it.
It sounds like she's lucky to see you so often.
No, we do all work very well together, and I think, given my hours, I'm able to accomplish what I have been doing, and I would just like to continue in the same capacity.
I have one last question. Does the library anticipate any warrant articles for the ballot this year?
That is a really good question. I have not been able to really get my arms around where the parking lot stands. Because since the I don't know, objective, I guess, has changed, we don't have numbers. I don't know how much it costs to repave a parking lot and pave a new one. I mentioned to Ellen that I can look it up online, and I got a $7.50 per square foot, and then I kind of estimated what the size of the lots were, and I'm like, is this enough? This is why I should ask for it? And she said, I think we can try and get you a better number from what they did at Marston and try and compare that. And then we hit this budget season. So that's a really long way of saying, gosh, I'd like that parking lot taken care of.
Yeah. Could impact fees be used for that?
No,
It's the library, it's only,
I don't think their current structure is written with the
Yeah,
library in
just
mind,
rec,
right?
school, and fire department.
Yeah.
I had one more
Rec
question.
had
and
a
I'll
parking
stop, I
lot next to the
promise.
library.
I'm happy to answer any
It's
questions.
gone to Warren, and it's $20,000, and then $20,000, and then $20,000. Had anybody asked the state, when we were planning on doing this and putting the warrant articles out, had anybody asked the state about where the wellhead was, what we were planning to do? Because it seems like the taxpayers have approved a lot of money, and we've run into, to me, it sounds like we opened up a humongous can of worms.
So there are a couple of
If-
different
with-
things.
With what's going on.
There are a couple of different things going on here. One is, we had one warrant article approved for $20,000. 10,000 of that went to the survey that was done. The remaining 10 was
Yep.
supposed to go to the new design, which has not happened. So that, as far as I understand, that money is not spent and has not been spent.
Okay.
The second time the warrant article went, it failed. So no additional money. So my understanding of the parking lot is we've spent $10,000, period, on the survey. So that's it. And
That's
it's
it?
helped. And
Okay.
that survey helped us figure a lot of things out with the existing
Yep.
slopes. It's actually helping to inform questions that we have about where we can make an ADA accessible path. So I would resist categorizing that as
Yep.
a waste or anything like that.
No, I'm not suggesting that, and believe me, I'm going off of memory here and not saying, hey, we did this, we did this, we did this.
Understood,
But
and
if-
I have a
When you
much
see it come across
more-
year after year, you're like, okay.
Well, it's been
okay,
delayed
and-
because of, different components.
Yep.
We had to know where the leach field was. We found the leach field had failed.
The
We had
surveying
re-
took a long time too. That got pushed way back.
The survey did, yeah. It was, the warrant article was approved in March of that year. The survey was not completed until November. And again, this was, I think, the third year-ish of COVID, and things were still kind of delayed.
Yep.
People weren't back yet. I don't even remember where I was going with this. Oh, so now we've had to change kind of what we're looking at. But I would point out that no money has gone into any of that aspect yet.
All right.
The parking lot is still crumbling. I
So,
mean, it's
so we're roughly at 10 on a warrant article and half of it's still sitting some,
half of it's somewhere
not spent.
that I don't understand.
Unexpended
Yes.
and, okay.
And that design work has not gone forward. And it won't, because we now know that the wellhead
Yeah.
is too close. And, that was something that we were informed this year, so
Yeah.
be flexible.
I didn't mean to suggest we were a waste of money either.
No,
Questions.
that was probably an overly strong categorization, but I understand what you're saying. It keeps coming up and nothing seems to happen. And trust me, I would love to see, but I also would not have wanted to get a complete design done for $10,000 and then find out that, DES says, sorry, you can't get that close to your wellhead. I mean, this is better that we did it this way.
And really, you've uncovered problems that should have been taken care of a long time ago. And
Yes.
preventing a lot of problems going forward. I mean, you can't have a failed septic system.
No,
you
and,
can't have water that's
and we had a electrical line that was completely black. It had been apparently struck by lightning. One of the former library people told me that. Said, oh yeah, I think the well was struck by lightning a few years ago. I'm like, every day something new.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
I will make my standard offer. If anyone comes up with questions after the fact, let me know. I am an open book, happy to answer them.
Thank you, appreciate it. Next is election and registration.
Courtney really wanted to.
We moved you to last.
Sorry. You stood up too early, now you're last. Just how it works. Election and registration, I have written down. Not sure why I grouped those.
Voter registration, maybe, so supervisor?
I don't know. I got told the categories and put them in a list.
Yeah.
I didn't pay attention.
Everything else that Lori does as well.
I don't see town clerk, that should be on with this.
That's what I think is part of the
They're
registration
indicated.
selection.
Sorry, I accidentally hit left. You want to probably should have. So last year I provided Ellen White with sort of a breakdown of what each election costs for just the election worker salary, which as far as the budget goes, that's really mainly my input for that. Obviously, the last 2 years were much larger. Next year, we only have the town deliberative session, which would be about $400 for employees, and the town election itself, which is $1,200. I don't have any numbers from the supervisors. I don't know if
She
she
said that
submitted those or not.
she told me that it wouldn't change, but I don't know what that, I don't want
Okay.
to speak for her.
Okay. I imagine with less elections, they would be less as well. So, the only other oddity this year, we've been informed by the state that at our elections, at our town elections, we'll now need to have the accessible voting system. I can never figure out that S. I don't know if you've ever noticed, in the corner, there's a big white tent. Inside that tent is
basically it's a pad, a huge printer, a headset. It allows different ways for voters to be read the election and to fill out the ballot if they need assistance. It rarely gets used at a state or a federal election, but for some reason now the state's requiring us to have it at our town elections, which this year they're going to allow us to borrow the one that they send us for the state election. But we will need to pay a programming fee, and that's a minimum of $750 and can go upwards of $2,500 to program it. I'm guessing the driving force is how large your ballots are, and welcome to Nottingham, ours are usually very large, so I suggested budgeting the $2,500 to cover us. So for those three things, that was just $4,100 for next year. And I also have been discussing poll pads with the Board of Selectmen. Poll pads are essentially an electronic version of the checklist. I assume you've all voted before. I can see a lot of my familiar election worker faces. So if you're familiar with how we check in now, it's essentially a paper checklist. So every voter's name is printed with their address and a barcode, and then it's broken down into books based on how many people we think are going to turn out. And then you get divided in line by the alphabet, which is really not the most ideal situation. And as with anything we do as humans, there are a lot of errors. It's a very jumbled piece of paper. So poll pads basically are the replacement for those. It's an electronic version of that. Lori and I had noticed a sort of a rise in chatter about them amongst the moderators or clerks in the state. So we reached out and asked LHS to come in and give us a demo. We realized that a lot of the issues we're struggling with in Nottingham would be resolved with the poll pad. They're encouraged by the Secretary of State's office to go that way. Most of New England is using them exclusively. Many towns in New Hampshire are already using them, including ones much smaller than us. And it will eventually be a requirement, as was getting a new device this year. It will also eventually, I think in the next year or two, be connected to the SVRS, which is, for all intents and purposes, is the voter history that's stored and used each election. So I just wanted to chat with you about the benefits of them, because of course, as with everything, they have a price tag associated. Number one is a line management tool. Any voter can check in at any pad. No more separating by the alphabet, which I don't know if any of you noticed the presidential election. For some reason, all day long, the J through Z was out the door and down the block, and no amount of us looking. We actually pulled all the new registrations off. Still didn't help. We kept looking at the numbers, and no matter how we fudged, because we can sort of, it's not ideal, but adjust the books during the day by literally taking paper and moving them and changing our signage, which is a humongous and confusing task. Doing that would not have served us number-wise, so that is a huge plus. Clerks then type in just the first, like, so Tim, you step up to check in, any clerk would just check in the first 2 to 3 letters of your name, and it would start coming up. But even more importantly, your IDs all have a barcode on them. The poll pads offer the opportunity to scan that if the voter so chooses, and then there is no mistake in choosing the right voter, which again, welcome to Nottingham. There are 5,000 people with the same name as someone else in their household, making it extra confusing when a clerk is trying to check people in. So for anyone who's checked in at the polls and know how long it can sometimes take to find your name in a book this thick, it cuts the check-in time to 15 seconds a voter. The moderator would also have a dedicated pad for absentee voters. As most of you know, people using absentee ballots has increased tremendously. As anyone who has worked the election, these two over here in particular know that the process we have now with the paper checklist is we receive the ballot, we open it up and do a series of steps, but then an assistant moderator actually physically has to check in as if they are the voter, so they still go to the checkbook and go through that process, which again becomes a real line management issues, because now we're sort of attacking those ballot clerks from both ends. So one pad would be dedicated purely to doing those. And you can also opt for your supervisors to have a pad, and all of these pads, they are not connected to the internet, but they are connected to each other via Bluetooth. So they connect in real time, so it'd be impossible for someone to check in on one pad or whatever. But if a new voter comes in, they can go to the supervisor of the checklist, just like they do now. They can be added directly to the pad and in real time then feed to all the ballot clerks, which there's a whole lot of paperwork involved now. Accuracy is a problem we are definitely struggling with. As I've said, we're humans, mistakes are made. It is a very long day. So scanning IDs, obviously I discussed, that will prevent you from checking in the wrong person. Each pad would also come with a little printer, and it prints a receipt. So that we would then, the way we would set it up, and we've talked to a lot of moderators across the state and how they do that, you'd give them that receipt and have them check that, and then they would go and make sure that is them. And then they would trade that in for their ballot. That slip then goes, for now, until New Hampshire is fully poll pad, a paper checklist will be kept as a backup in the back of the room. Now I would have my most seasoned, most dedicated clerks in a quiet, private corner actually marking the physical checklist. And they would then also have that receipt. So, you know, we spend quite a few days reconciling things afterwards, you know, trying to, what did the ballot clerk mean when they did this? Did this person check in? Did they grab a Democrat ballot or Republican ballot? And again, it happens to our most seasoned clerks who've done this for 20 years. So that is gonna give us one more piece of paper to confirm that we have checked in the right person, recorded the correct history. And then sort of the biggest thing that made poll pads come to our attention is the state, what was it, last, probably about 2 days before the primary, presidential primary, informed us that we now need to reconcile the entire election the night of the election. It used to be sort of that I was really giving them the rough numbers at the end of the night. There are 3 legs of the stool. You have your inventory, what you receive for ballots, process for ballots. You then have, you reconcile a couple of races to make sure that the number of votes received in that race lines up with the inventory. And then the third part is how many people physically checked into that checklist. Now, to explain to you how complicated, messy sometimes it can get during the day checking people in. Now those books all move to the end of the night, and clerks have to sit there and count every single person that checked in. They also have to note whether they were absentee, whether they were, what party they're with, and what is the other thing I'm blanking on? I'll think of it later. And any changes, of course. So I am sitting then waiting for that number to make sure that works. Like I said, typically we spend 2 days. It used to be that the reports were due at 5 p.m. on Thursday following an election. We have that time to sort of sort through that, look for the notes, reach out to the ballot clerks, see who remembered who, and that kind of thing.
And just to be clear, none of this changes the election results, because
No.
No.
Did I give that impression?
No, I've been part of the process, so I just want to explain that it has nothing to do with the votes.
No. No, it's just, and then we always work it out, we always reconcile a race, we really pride ourselves, we reconciled the race, my two legs of the stool were reconciled perfectly night of, and within, again, it did take the 2 days, I wasn't able to file my reports following it, and I'm a perfectionist, they said, they did give us the leeway this time, if you can't get them by tonight. It's a lot of work, we have a lot of tired people by the end of the night, so that is a huge thing. So that pad is going to give me immediate end of the night reports. It is going to tell me exactly how many people checked in the minute I close the polls. Will we still, go through the checklist and record the voter history and check for accuracy? Of course, but we don't have to do all that the night of to satisfy the state and the state's requirements. So voter history is also another important step that the supervisors take following the election. Everybody's name has a little barcode, they scan that and then record your new voter history each race. The pads will now print a report that only includes those who actually voted, so there's no more scan Charlotte Fife, oops, I accidentally scanned Jillian Eldridge, she didn't come vote. Now it's just a report of exactly who voted. And again, they will eventually be connected themselves. I'm not sure if they will sync or link or how exactly it will work. All of these are on secure systems that we currently use now to create our ballots and such. They will be linked so that it will be a huge time saver for the supervisors as well down the line, where it will automatically at some point feed into the voter registration system to save that voter history. Another issue we ran into these past 2 years with so many elections is the school not appreciating having to be displaced so much, which we totally know and appreciate, and quite honestly, the elections are easier for all of us if they are in this building, because this is where all of our records are, this is where access to all of our equipment is. And if we can knock, part of our issue here though is no parking and space. However, if we are now checking voters in within 15 seconds, that's much different than the several minutes of voter we have now. So maybe we could possibly revisit the option to have our elections here, with the exception obviously of a presidential race, which is always going to be in school, sorry. And again, we hosted a training with as many of the staff we could invite. The supervisors that were able to attend and the clerks that were able to attend really loved them. I reached out to all of the moderators in the state. Lori has reached out to clerks all over the state. Across the board, the feedback has been positive, and everything that I presented to you as being the upgrade to them has rung true with everybody. But even after, the moderators have been very chatty after the presidential election, have discussed in depth how grateful they were to have the pads. So
I would just say, just to process the absentee ballots
alone, yeah.
alone. We had over 400 this year.
Yeah, so all of us at one point, I had to bring in, I think we brought in 4 additional employees. I had, in the middle of the day, because we were not getting it done. We just physically couldn't with the amount of, if anyone, I think it was probably till 2 o'clock in the afternoon that we had even a little bit of a lull to catch our breath and try. So at that point, we would have been processing well into the night if we hadn't brought more employees in. So it will actually save money down the line as far as
You're not
election
interrupting the line of people coming in to check in.
workers. Correct.
It's a separate book.
So Karen or one of my other lovely assistant moderators could literally sit in a corner and with that pad and just process all of those absentees. So the poll pad enrollment and the 1 year sort of fees that they charge is $1,300. The poll pad for the absentees, or the moderator pad, whatever you call it, which each pad is $1,300. So that would be another pad for $1,300. I think the reason I am suggesting this for the next budget is because I expect that election budget to be significantly lower than it has been in the past 2 years. If we wait till they demand them of us, I guarantee you it's gonna end up in a year that we once again have many elections and a huge election budget. So I do not want to be behind the 8 ball. Also, there's going to be a learning curve. I'd rather it be in a year when I have one town election to practice on rather than attempt this at some major election. So ideally, they said 5 pads for our size checklist would, so that would be 3 for ballot clerks, 1 for the moderator. And if the supervisors want one, they do not have to have one for new registration. That would be the 5. I am suggesting that we start with 3 if we were to get them next year. So that would be the 1 poll pad for absentees, the 2 for ballot clerks, and then the 3 printers at $350 each. And we only have 1 election to program for next year, so that would bring it to a total of $4,550.
Those numbers don't seem to line up. You're $2,000 short, I think.
More than, right? So 2 poll pads, 1,300 times.
Oh, I
2
see
is
why, my
26.
formula didn't work, so it should be another 13, sorry.
And then in the
Another
printers,
700.
350 times the 3, you should be at
Yeah.
1050, not 350.
I had manually entered the numbers and thought I'd be fancier and put the per price, but apparently that didn't work all the way down.
And so these
So-
wouldn't be approved anyway till next year. And we couldn't have them, use till 2025, correct?
600 equals, yeah, sorry about that, 350.
6550 is what I came up with.
That makes more sense. So it looks like I shorted one, yeah, had 1,300 plus 700, so 2,000, yeah, it's 2,000 off, sorry. I swore it works the first time. So $6,550. The recurring fees, each year you would have an annual license and software update per pad. So that would be 1,500 if we started with the 3 pads. That would not be, that's already included in all that price above for the first year. This would be beginning year 2. And then you need to program them for each election, not per pad, but just for the election itself of $300. So that number is driven by the number of elections you have each year. Again, if the supervisor would like a pad down the line.
Real quick, Dawn.
Yeah.
So regardless of the number of the pads, just per election, it's just a blanket?
Yes.
Covered?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep. Yep, so that was it. The other thing for us to be aware of is the ABS device that I started talking about. I do not think we need to purchase it this coming budget. I'm advising that we wait, even though we will need it for 2026, because the state has no idea how much it's going to cost. They've given us a budget of $4,000 to $7,000, and they have said that funding will likely be available to at least help offset the cost, so I see no reason to, we won't need it for the next election cycle, so it's fine to push that off for another election cycle, especially since they've told us we need it, but have given us little to no information on the costs or the how, so that was it.
And Dawn, by having these poll pads, I assume you'll need less election workers?
Eventually, yes.
So there's a little offset there, because they're
Yes.
paid.
Yeah, so I had asked I reached out to Bud Fitch, who's the Attorney Secretary of State, because it was a big question. Typically, you have 2 ballot clerks, one from each major party, sitting at the checklist. So I didn't know if I'd still need that many people. So that's really just simply about handing the physical ballot. So we would actually have a ballot clerk from the Democrat Party, Republican, and they would be trading that slip for the ballot. So it's just quick handing of paper, and then we just would need one clerk per pad. So we did check on that. So yes, it will definitely cut down at some point. I mean, there's obviously gonna be a learning curve a little bit in the beginning, and we'll need to maintain the paper checklist probably eventually that will phase out completely, but yes. Yeah.
as a frequent flyer in the ballot clerk, I'd be really excited about this. It is, I'm afraid of the red pen. I'm afraid to write it.
I have done the election a million times now, not just as moderator, but as clerk, and I still know the answer, and I still hesitate every single time. What Charlotte's referring to is, as I've said, that paper is very busy, and we're trying to make a lot of notations sometimes in it, like change of address, primary, we're indicating which ballot you chose if you're an undeclared voter. We have to check that you stood in front of us, crossed you out once you took the ballots. There's a whole lot of information getting squished into these pages and sort of, you know.
And my observation is voters are very concerned about accuracy, that you'd probably be able to recruit more ballot clerks, which has often been a problem in the past, if this were a little less complicated, and cut down on the time. And I think having the accuracy of being able to have the results when you close the polls.
Yes, yeah. And primary in particular is a challenging election to run. You are really running two separate elections because we need to record all the data for the Democrat Party and all the data for the Republican Party. These poll pads will no longer let you check in a voter without telling the poll pad what ballot they chose. So that right there is a huge game changer because that is a big one at the end of the night on a primary. So.
And it will tell you how many undeclareds picked this ballot, how many undeclareds
Right.
picked that ballot, and that's
These are all numbers we need.
challenging number to get at the
Yeah,
end of
the spreadsheet they give me to complete on a primary is, you need some sort of math degree to understand. I luckily now think I have a handle on it, but there's a lot of how many undeclareds before you started voting, how many after, how many chose a Democrat ballot, how many chose Republican. These poll pads are able to give those accurate numbers instead of relying on very tired minds at the end of the night to be perfect. Yes, and we like to be perfect, so. Any other questions?
I think the only thing, but one quick question.
Yeah.
So, if, you know, if the town approved to move forward with this, it would basically go live for town elections 2026?
25.
No,
Or
26. No,
This March?
no, you can't, because we don't vote on the
No,
budget.
it'd be pushed a year out. So the first time they would be utilized would be March 2026?
Yes,
I guess that would be March 2026 then,
Okay.
yes. Right.
and we have 3
Unless-
elections that year.
Yeah, unless we have funds, a surplus of funds
Yep.
that you'd be willing from this year that we could put towards them, I would definitely recommend going that route, because again, I would love to have them too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the state did give us 30.
Testing the stuff beforehand's not the worst idea in the world anyway, and getting
Yes.
used to it and all that,
Yeah,
but.
I think, I think we are very lucky that we do have very tech-savvy supervisor. My kids might say, disagree, but I'm fairly tech-savvy. And, Tim works on most elections for now, he's also pretty savvy, so we definitely have, but yes, that would be ideal if we could smush it in before with some surplus funds. So I forgot
We
about
did
that.
have a warrant article for a new ballot machine, which was approved for $7,500. And the state's giving us $3,500, which we could have put towards the ballot machine or the poll pads.
We did initially, when we posed this idea, we're thinking since we got the warrant article for that, we would apply that funds and be able to purchase these now, which is.
We're gonna be forced to get the ballot machine anyway, right? Weren't they planning on dropping that hammer, but nobody could advise and the machines weren't ready and stuff like that,
Yeah,
so
so ironically, one.
you're gonna have to go that way
I
anyway,
know.
so.
Lori and I went to the demo. We chose the machine that's being put out by the company we currently have, obviously for a smaller learning curve. We have history working with them and trust them. I also personally felt there was too much technology that would freak voters out involved.
Those had some neat features, like as far as screenshots and stuff like that
It
though,
did,
so.
but there was also a movable memory card, which we thought would be concerning to voters. You had to move it. I, at the end of the night, would have to take, I would have to put a
A thumb drive.
thumb drive into it and then move that thumb drive to a printer. I mean, there were some neat features like
Yeah.
write-ins and stuff like that, but I
It was
just,
open source software.
yes.
that
They
part.
were able to get quicker approval because for some reason they were put through a less rigorous process than LHS. the company
They
that
paid for their
purchased it.
own electrical.
I never dug too far into it. I just heard that there was two machines and I didn't know what was coming out, but I know that the one that we were leaning towards, like, had some neat features and stuff like that.
Yeah, they both are great. They both are gonna, both machines are gonna make things a lot more efficient. I mean, if nothing else, for the worn out parts in the current machine that we have is mixing our ballots up quite a bit. So I
Yep.
have to have eyes put on every single ballot at the end of the election, which technically you shouldn't. I mean, I probably would anyway, but you really have to be a lot more careful. It's mixing up our ballots, the write-ins anyway. So, yeah, the one that we chose is actually going through more scrutiny. It should be any day now. I actually thought they did get their next level, but we have put in the purchase order for it already, so that we could use the funds in time that we voted for last year. So we are on the list to get it as soon as it has its final approval, which I would assume we'd have that by March. I think they're expecting it November,
I think we
December.
have to. Or we don't have, yeah.
I don't know how many more elections that machine we have can go.
It's not the machine itself, Ashley, it's the box it's sitting
It's
on.
the box it's sitting in. Yes, it's in,
It's the box.
yeah. And of course, we'll get it adjusted just right, and then it gets moved from here to the school and.
If you have an older machine, you get parts going obsolete, it's not gonna get any better. They're gonna
Correct.
stop making them.
And they will not be making parts with the machine. We really had no option but to replace.
It's gonna die off slowly.
Exactly. So I think next year's the last year they'll need the state's email that and we'll use that one, so.
Any other questions for Don?
Thank you all.
Thank you, Don.
You want me to go back, you want me to stay?
You want to go sit back down, come back up? No, you're good. No, you're good. What do you got, Laurie?
So this year we had, what, 4 elections, so that was a big part of what we did. Next year, we only have 1, which is good. As I was going over the budget, I noticed that the town clerk's salary, which I had asked for an increase for both Alana and I, of 50 cents an hour. And then the budget didn't pass, and then all the line items on the budget were reallocated by the selectmen, but that line item stayed the same. So, I don't know if we should have been paid those raises or not. And I mentioned this when I presented to the selectmen, and they were gonna get back to me. Unfortunately, they haven't. So, when I calculated it as if we did get those raises, and I gave us additional raises on top of it, 50 cents an hour. In my mind, those are owed to us retroactively, back to January. I don't know how it's done, if Betsy's just told, and I don't know if it was just an oversight, but I think what happened was that when they went through all the departments with the department heads, because we're not employees, it was missed. But I'll tell you this, when I became the town clerk in 2020, in March, I haven't had a raise since. In 4.5 years. 50 cents would have been nice. So, that's all I'm gonna say about that. But if you go down on my line items, they had also removed the conference money, and unfortunately, we were never received the updated budgets once they moved all the money around. But we're required to go to these conferences, and the town's required to pay for us to go to these conferences. It's only one day. I mean, we could stay for 3 days, but it's only one day. We drove down to Nashua and came back, and it's, especially in an election year like this one, we learned so much information that one day. It was terrific. Postage comes in, postage goes out, it's a wash. Because we charge people postage per transaction. On the equipment maintenance and support, that line item is actually for the software that we use to process the auto registrations and dog licenses. That is a fee that we're charged by Interware. And what I am proposing is that we have 2 workstations now. It would be great if we had 2 computers for the 2 clerks, because right now we work one at a time. Alana works one day, then I work the next day, then Alana, then I do. 5 half-days. And there are times of the year that we have to work together, like right before that election, just to enter absentee ballots. This is at the minimum of the work that has to get done. I think that what people don't understand is, sure, we're open from 8:30 to 12:30, say. When we shut the door, that doesn't mean that our work is done. That means that we've seen customers for that period of time, but there's plenty of other stuff that we have to do. There's administrative stuff. When it's election time, there's a lot of administrative work that has to get done. And especially with one computer, only one person can do it. And a lot of can't do a lot of the things that I can do, or that I'm supposed to be doing. So I generally leave most of it for Friday afternoon. I'm usually here till 5 o'clock on Friday, 4:30, 5 o'clock, just to play catch-up. I think that we both should be working at the same time, at least 2 days a week. And I was talking with Tim about that, and he wanted me to think about it. And I did, and I think that to start, we could do, say, Monday and Thursday, 2 clerks together at the same time. And then Tuesday and Wednesday work separately, like we had been. Every other town has 2 all the time, not one person alone. It's to the point where we can't even answer the telephone. And that's not right. You know, people need a question answered. And if you answer the phone while you're working on another customer situation, it just doesn't work. You can't, because you just can't do it. I know that we like to have Nottingham be, because that's the way it always has been. Doesn't make it efficient. It doesn't make it right. Every other town does it. It's not like we're asking for anything special. But that would take a complete workstation. The computer we have right now, we don't even own, the state owns it. And that's the only computer that we can use to do vital records on. So I'd need a printer, a computer, and a telephone. I don't even know where I could set them up in the office.
Lori, can I just stop you for a second? Just to be clear with the town clerk fees, so that gets paid to you and Alana as well, right?
Yep.
I'm just wondering if you're looking at the numbers here, it doesn't really look like you've hit the budget, at least the past 2 years. I know 2023 was, 22 I think was higher than 23. But I don't have that here.
22, we had 3 elections, so that might be why.
Okay. Well, aren't the town clerk fees, isn't that from registrations? That's not from the
Oh,
elections.
you're talking about the town, well, right here, this one, what's the date that this was printed?
So if we look at 2023, the budget was 54.7. The actual was 52.7. And then this year's 56 was approved. You're at 47 as of last week.
Okay, and so we're guessing, we don't know,
Well, but I'm just wondering if that might be too high.
it might be. I kind of have to guess at how many.
Because that could be your computer right there, I'm just saying.
Oh,
When you're thinking about moving line items around.
I'm
that's
not
your-
thinking about moving line items around.
I am.
No, you are, but I'm not.
Well, I know you're not, but if realistically, you're $2,000 a year lower than what you're budgeting, why not say, well, realistically, this is the budget item for town clerk fees,
And
potentially?
that line item there is paid by the state. It's not paid by the town. So if you're moving that, you're moving funds that aren't raised by the town.
They're on our budget.
I know they're in the budget.
They're offset by revenue.
I know they're in
Which
the
I
budget.
get, but still, we have to account for the expenditures. I'm just saying, if we're
Okay.
trying to, because
Yeah, you can do that.
I'm just being realistic, because we lost like $400,000 in warrant articles last year that weren't passed
Mm-hmm.
over that. So when you're thinking about that, and we're on a default budget,
Mm-hmm.
when we look at the final dollar amount that we can
But we don't
raise-
have to be in a default budget next year, is what I'm saying.
I know that, but we are this year.
I know
So
it.
my point is, when we're looking at the tax cap, and we have that number that we can raise,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be a whole lot of money. So $2,000 doesn't seem like a lot, and it's not, right? But when we look at every department, and then we look at the warrant
Well, you
articles.
can do a warrant article to give the town clerk what
It's-
she needs
it's-
finally.
It's the same thing, though. When we look at our tax cap, it's a combination of the operating budget and all of the warrant articles. For a couple of years after that 4% tax cap got implemented, they weren't doing it correctly. So they were basing it just on the operating budget. It's not. It's based upon the operating budget and the warrant articles. So you can say, well, we'll take
Could
the,
you do a warrant article to get rid of that 4%?
absolutely. Would it pass by a 2/3 vote?
I think it's worth a shot.
You have a pen and
Everything has
paper?
gone up.
Write it down, baby.
We've got a room full of people that might sign a petition. But no, so that, my point is that I think for the past couple of years, the budget committee has been moving money around and the select board between warrant articles and thinking that, well, hey, if we don't keep it on the budget, we can have a warrant article, the voters can vote on it, but it doesn't work that way. It's all one big number that we have to come to.
And so every other department has gotten a raise.
I'm not specifically saying your
So I don't
raise.
think that I should have to cut my budget. And I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying. You can take the imaginary number that I'm putting there for the fees, because we have no idea what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
You can reduce that, but what if it goes over it? Then what happens at the end of the year? How do you reconcile that?
Well, that's what we do with all of them.
Yeah.
You know, when the highway department's over budget for the year, we're trying to pull from someplace else.
Why is that number even in the budget? Because that number doesn't actually get raised in taxes.
It does, because we have to pay it. So anything that the town spends has to be on the budget. There can be a revenue to offset that expenditure, but we can't spend the money without it being approved, which is why, for example, when Don brought up the ballot machine, for example, if that didn't pass, we couldn't spend the money on it, right? That
Well,
warrant article.
you can't spend the money on it.
Right, if it didn't pass. So,
So we're saving $3,500 against the ballot machine, because we got the grant for it. There's $3,500 right there.
in revenue, correct, for this year. But you still have, if you would spend the money, you can have revenue to offset, but it still has to be approved and spent. So for example, if Steve had a new truck and he has a grant that could potentially pay for it, and we're gonna spend $45,000,
So how would what if my printer died? How would I buy a new printer? How would I get the equipment that I would need to use to do my job?
we'd have to figure it out with Ellen and with the select board. You'd have to figure out where that extra money's gonna come from when you go over, which is why you guys have been reviewing the budgets every quarter. To see where we're at. My point is that we've been doing the tax cap calculation incorrectly, so that everybody understands it's not just the operating budget. It's the warrant articles and the operating budget combined.
To be raised by taxation.
To be that 4%, it can't be the tax rate can't be 4% higher than the prior year.
And so the town clerk doesn't really cost the town any money. I am raising money for the town, and I have the absolute basic. I don't own my computer. We have a printer, and I get supplies to run my equipment. That's it. I don't cost the town any money. I raise revenue for the town.
You're preaching to the choir. I'm just trying to explain.
I'm just trying to
every
explain
dollar.
it so that everybody
Yeah. I'm
understands.
just trying to explain why the expense is there, because we expend the money, the town does, that's why it has to be in the budget. Because the money is going out. I know there's an offsetting revenue coming in, but there's an expense going out, and so it has to be in the operating budget.
Any other questions for Lori?
I don't know if Lori, do you feel like you had to finish? Was there anything else you wanted to? I don't know if we stopped halfway down.
Yeah, we did kind of
Maintenance.
stop.
just like it
We stopped at
distracted.
26.
Yeah.
Apologies.
And so, what I'm here to say is that every other town has 2 clerks that work together all the time.
Have you, in Alana, kind of looked at traffic patterns to figure out, like, if you switched to certain days, if that would, if there's more, it doesn't, or it doesn't matter?
No, and every town does it differently.
But here, do you see certain traffic patterns, like the beginning of the month is, or end of the month is busier as people are trying to?
Yeah, the end of the month and the beginning of the month, because it's the same,
Right.
it's people who waited or people who bought a new vehicle.
People that waited longer on the,
Gotta do it in that 10-day
Past
grace
the first
period like I do
month.
every time? Yeah.
It's usually not the month of.
banging on
No,
the
I'm
door
not
saying,
great
oh
at that.
All
crap.
in the middle of the month, usually around between the 18th and the 21st. I don't know why.
So, I mean, to me, I mean, I think if it's gonna make sense, like, and we talked about this in the select board
You
meeting.
can't gauge it.
No, but if it's going to make sense for your department, it's gonna make sense for the public to increase, or have you guys overlap, I don't know why it wouldn't make sense, to be honest, but we can talk about it at a select board meeting.
I think that people don't understand that we don't just register cars.
No,
We
you
also
do
put-
trailers too.
And campers, and boats.
Everything. Somebody should, just like with the election, when people complain about how it's run, they should volunteer and sit down. They should sit in your office for, 2 hours and see what you guys go through.
I don't think they have a clue.
No, I didn't.
But
It would have been nice to have another computer to do all those absentee ballots on. Every one of those has to be recorded when it's requested, when it's sent out, when it's returned, and when it's counted. You only have one computer. How do you do it? You can't. It's just a basic office piece of equipment. That's all.
Anything else you want to bring to our attention on the list?
No, I think I'm done.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Maybe? I suppose.
Hello?
Hey, howdy. Hold on, we'll just flip to the right portion of our packet here. All the pages labeled 1. Not helping the case. Come on.
The back.
Every one of them's
Here we
paid.
go.
I demanded numbers, I got numbers.
You got numbers.
They're all ones.
True, you didn't say anything about sequential or,
Last meeting.
okay.
Line 273.
Second to last page in the packet.
Yep.
273. Okay,
Go for it, thank you.
ready? All right, so before I get into it, I want to acknowledge that my budget on paper is up 28%. I do realize that is high, and I do realize where we're at with the budget. Just a little bit for the new folks that are here this year. We run our department with 3 full-time employees. Those full-time employees are very needed and necessary in our department for what we do. We have over 40 offerings throughout the year for youth, teens, adults, legacy leaders that are our 55-plus group. We serve over 70 families in our after-school care program, over 100 families for summer camp, over 40 legacy leaders that come to our events and things like pickleball. And our hikes that we do. We have had very successful high numbers for our community events like Halloween this past October. We had 700 people, which was absolutely crazy and wonderful all at the same time. And we usually have a really great big turnout for our holiday parade too, which is coming up in a few weeks. So I would say, and I say this every year, but I truly mean it, our events do continue to keep growing, our programs do continue to keep growing. We've hit the point where there's no such thing as downtime, except for the few days we take off for the holidays in December. We are always planning for things, as they come about. So I do believe, and that's why I do my job, that Parks and Rec is a huge benefit to our community. It caters to our most vulnerable populations, and it brings people together, promotes good physical health, mental health, and allows people to connect with one another. So we're very passionate about what we do. Our department loves our job and every challenge that comes with it. So to kind of go back to the budget, we'll start with our salary line. That includes myself. It includes an $800 stipend for our beach gate openers. And this year, as I did last year, same thing, I have put in the remaining half of the assistant salary in that line. A little bit about that. The assistant role does a little bit of everything in our department. Not only does she work with me on things like budgets, long-term town projects, overseeing staff, administrative work, she also is a key part of what we do for our programs and our youth programs and childcare programs. So that position being partially in rec revolving is not a permanent solution long-term. So in order to keep the things that we have going in the direction that they're going, it's my recommendation that this assistant position at some point goes into the general fund and is supported by the taxpayers as well. So with that, if anyone has any questions, happy to answer, or I can keep going.
Is that the most substantive difference
Yeah.
to this versus last year's?
Yep. Yep. And there's two others that we'll get to that also add, but that is definitely why my budget has gone up 28% right there. If we keep going, postage, this is the first year I've ever gone over postage, and that's due to postage rates going up. So I have increased that line to $500. That is the only way that we can reach, it's not the only way, but it's the best way that I can reach the population 55 and older. Because of the postcard, we send monthly postcards out, because of those postcards, that has increased our programs, our numbers. So it's very important that we keep that. If you keep going down, our rec dues and conferences, those stayed the same. Training has stayed the same. It looks like I haven't spent the entire 2,000 for our conference dues. The way that works is I pay that in December for the next year. So our conference is annually in January. So that money will be coming out in the next month or so. Same with training, that number is low. We were supposed to go to the state conference this year, but it was too close to our Halloween event, so we had to bail this year. So it's really important that we keep those professional development lines the way that they are, which is the same as they have been the last couple of years. The next line you will see is our park, field, beach maintenance line. That line has gone up so in my CIPs for this year, the walkway that is right outside this door is crumbling apart. Right where the entrance is to the gym is an awful washout area, so that is something that also needs to be fixed as well, but we would like to pave that area to make that a safer walkway. That walkway is very unsafe. During our program alone, I've had lots of injuries with summer camp there. Kids, that's our main exit and entrance into the building. Keeping kids away from the front of the building. We like to use this backside to keep people away from the road. So this walkway is super important for us to get fixed. It's been a Band-Aid for a while. It used to be bricks. The bricks were thrown. Kids would smash them. So we took the bricks out. Highway, a couple years ago, helped us make what it is now, but Steve can attest, that thing washes out with any big storm. So that's why that line changed. And that quote that I received is $6,200, so that's all that I added for that. There's other parts of the CIP, but in a budget year like this, this is the more important addition. Alongside that, I'm keeping those numbers the same, the 24,000 for mowing, seeding and fertilizing of Marston, some funds for playground repairs. We also take porta potties out of that line. Porta potties we do split with groups like NYA and Northern Strikers when they use our field, so we do minimize our costs that way by sharing those costs. The town beach also comes out of that line if we need new signage, stuff like that. I will say with our mowing, we are up for an RFP is due, so we will be putting that out this winter to see what we can get different with quotes and that sort of thing. But we really need to keep these fields mowed for the fields, for safety, for the kids that use them, and all that. Any questions on that line?
You want me to ask about prisoners coming to mow the fields for old time's sake?
Please don't.
I just assumed the town mowed our fields, but it's actually a separate company that does that.
It's the same company. It's kind of a combined contract, but we do take responsibility for the athletic fields.
It's not the town.
We
don't have that equipment.
We don't have.
No. Yeah.
And I think we hashed this out last year quite a bit, and it seems like it would be more cost-effective to do it in-house, but it really didn't seem to be.
How much you buy all the equipment?
Crunch the numbers.
Well, and a salary too on top of that to get somebody with a trailer, a truck, and
Something I've gotten a lot of questions about
Yeah.
in the outside world, and I
Yeah.
said, no, really, when we crunched the numbers, we looked at it,
Asking volunteers to do it.
no savings, yeah.
it would take
not a
so
bias.
long. Marston's huge. Okay. If you go down to our next line, rec equipment and supplies, this year it went up, but I also got rid of, if you look down at line 284, I just combined those two lines. To me, it's the same sort of stuff. Things that we kind of buy that are equipment are things like our Gaga pit that we installed this year, which was great. Kids love it. We're hoping, somebody donated the older one that's out there, so we're hoping next year to refresh it with Gary Anderson, who can make it just like the other one. So we're hopeful that we can get two really nice looking ones out there that will get used during camps and the town events and during soccer games and all that kind of stuff. We use that money to fix anything that might break. We try and do a lot of volunteer. We try and get a lot of volunteer help when we can. But as you all know, for years I've been saying this, like it's been hard to get volunteers to do a lot of things. So, but with that being said, this past year we were able to secure volunteers and some people who could help flatten the back portion of Marston. We got that all done for nothing, which was wonderful, except volunteer help. So that field has been seeded. We also received a donation from Black Bear Lacrosse to help with seeding that back field so that it can be used for other activities as well. So that is a new improvement. Also a new improvement, we are adding a disc golf course at Marston in the wooded areas that are not developed. We sold sponsorships for those holes. We've raised all of the funds to make that happen. We're now just hoping and praying that volunteers start popping up to help us construct that property and get it to where we can play. But we have a lot of super dedicated people who are excited to see that come together. And all of that was fundraised for or done by volunteer or donated. So really happy about that. So the little that we have for the rest of the parks and the rest of what we kind of maintain is really important that we keep. So yeah. If you go down to rec programs, that's 2,000, that stays the same. That money goes directly towards our legacy group, the 55 plus, to help us put luncheons on, do activities at a lower cost. That stayed the same. And office supplies is the next one that changed. We are in desperate need of new computers in our office. All three of our computers are over 5 years old, but specifically the program supervisor and myself are running very slow computers. So that increase covers the cost of new equipment and keeps our other office supply line at $1,200 the same. So yeah. And then mileage, this was also the first year we went over our mileage line. We had a lot of different things happen this year. We also have 3 full-time employees now, and the rec van isn't always a useful tool when we're picking up equipment and stuff like that. So I bumped that up to 200 in hopes that that's enough. But we use the van as much as we can so that that doesn't rack up. That's all I got.
Any questions for Courtney?
I got some. How'd rec revolving fund do this year, and what do you have in there?
So I don't have the rec revolving revenues this year yet. I'm waiting on those from Betsy. Our expenses at this point have hit around 240,000, and that includes, so big things that come out of rec revolving. Last year, we moved all of our community events into that fund. That was around $9,000, so that's a big expense that comes out. Half the assistant salary comes out of there at this point. All of the program supervisor salary comes out of that line. Seasonal staff and aftercare and summer camp. Our summer camp hardships come out of that line too. I don't have a total for that with me, but last year it was about $7,000. Credit card fees, so with that being said too, so credit card fees last year, we realized we were spending a lot of money because we were covering that cost for the registrant. So this year we've upped our prices as much as we can, and we've also put that fee kind of back on the person who registers for a program, allow people to pay in person, cash or check. But we still have to pay those fees, and that number this year is around 27,000 right now. So that's a huge number that comes out of rec revolving. Anyways, we're bringing more money in to cover those costs, but we still have to pay all that money out. So that's a huge number that comes out.
Sorry, just to clarify, that's to process credit card payments?
Yep. With our online
27,000.
system. And you have, and it's based off of what you're registering for, right? So if you're registering for summer camp all 7 weeks, that's a big bill. It's percentage based.
I started writing checks.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and for years we were covering that, and it didn't make sense for us to do that. I will say, if we continue to keep big salaries and these big expenses in rec revolving, we're not gonna be able to grow.
For-profit companies are starting to charge.
Do you have a ballpark of where you think this thing's gonna land?
For rec
Yeah.
revolving,
Yep.
this is not something that we typically profit big amounts of money on. I don't know off the top of my head, but we still have the end of the year. I have staff salaries that still gotta get paid out. And we
If I remember correctly, last year you were within like $2,000 or $3,000 of.
Yeah, last year was close. Very
Did a
close.
good job.
Thanks.
So,
Is it fair to say over the last 3, 4, maybe even 5-year period, you're almost 100% turnover at rec revolving, within
Yep.
plus or minus, what, $5,000 maybe?
Yeah, and I think especially if you look back around COVID when we actually lost money in rec revolving, the next year we gain money back. So it's not a guarantee. If anything happens with summer camp or with aftercare, that's not money that we can guarantee that we're gonna get. So as of right now, we have 300,000 in that fund. That was last year's number. I don't have this year's number yet, but you gotta remember, that's not year to year. That's from when that's like from when we opened this. And all of those program fees we try to put back. I mean, this past year, we've had old karate mats and wrestling mats, so we bought new mats. Those were $14,000. We had to buy a new playground equipment or structure because it fell apart last year. That was $18,000. So that's what rec revolving is for. It's to, fix those big things when they happen, to go back towards, to put that back on the community.
So there was 300 sitting as of last year?
As of last year.
Okay.
And there's more expenses that are additional, so at some point, we're hopeful to move into this space for our offices. And with that, we need to buy partitions.
It's gonna be in here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be wonderful with a closet.
With all this.
Oh, we'll fill it, don't worry. So those expenses will also kind of come out of rec revolving as well, so we don't really know what those are at this time, but that's gonna create a dent, I would assume, in that 300,000, so.
Any other questions?
I just had a question about, the $6,200 for the paid walkway around town hall. Is that something that goes here, or is that that would be like part of, 'cause that's part of this whole building, and everyone needs it.
I was curious about that as well.
No, it's a good question.
We talked about that at the last select board.
Yep.
We'll have those discussions probably when we actually start.
Well, if we're
Pulling
changing,
together-
if we're
budget
changing
together,
spaces and Rex coming here and you're talking outside the store, then that probably,
We'll have to have those discussions. That's
Yeah.
not necessarily something Courtney can answer for us.
Yep.
At this point, we're trying to focus on not using up too much of these folks' time.
All set?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
guys, appreciate it.
And of course, I realize Courtney's so excited to go, I skipped planning and zoning. Apologies if anybody's here from planning, but I don't believe anybody's here. Okay. I had crossed that off on my list because I was told nobody was gonna be here, and then I realized I should have actually said something. Yeah, no, we'll catch up with that. Ellen will get us there. And of course, we saved the best for last, Steve. Yay for you. So, highway budget, let's see what we got in our packet of goodies here.
It's the last number one page.
The last number one? You
Yes.
sure? Could be the last.
223.
There we go.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing, Steve?
Good. So I really have no presentation. I was told I was just here for questions and answers.
Excellent. Well,
That's what I'm here for.
All
let's
right.
see. We'll start going down the list and looking at changes. First one I see, part-time salaries going from 6 to 18. More part-time folks covering,
So we added another one ton.
oh, okay.
And in order to delete more hired help, do more in-house
Yep.
at a cheaper cost.
How are you currently staffed right now, Steve?
Full minus that one truck.
Okay.
So full for you is 4 plus you?
4 full, 1 part-time, plus myself.
Yep, okay. Looks like mowing is going up quite a bit. Is that sort of to,
Just way behind on that. I'd like to get everything, and we're no different than any other town or even the state. Everything's growing in, but unfortunately, growing in and bushing in ends up being more expensive in the long run. More salt, less sun in there, nothing melting like it should. So along with the mowing goes,
Yep.
And there hasn't been any done this year?
Yes, but unfortunately, the way they've been handling Nottingham is they've been doing a third of the year, third of the town per year. The problem with that is, that's 3 years of growth on the first year we started.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's beyond grass, now we're in the brush. Yeah,
Is it possible to do the whole town every year?
yes.
Yeah.
And I think if, I talked to a couple different mowing companies, and if I could get that kind of money for the 1 year, get everything wall to wall, all the roads, then next year after that, it looks like the price would probably be more like around $12,000 to $13,000 per year. But that's this year, and we know how things go up, so.
Labor costs, right?
Looks like hired's going up quite a bit.
Yeah, it has.
For plowing?
Is that just labor costs primarily, or?
We added a lot of trucks last year.
Oh, okay.
The plow route here was about 6 hours,
That's long.
way long. The insurance company was not happy with it.
No, I can't imagine.
They recommend about a 2-hour plow route, and the only way I could do that was to add a bunch of trucks. Because we do have the one problem, which is our materials over on Smoke Street. So if any one of my routes, let's say it's a 2-hour route to do, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
It's 45 minutes to an hour to go over there and get a load and get back. So you just added an hour to your route. So even a 2-hour route's a 3-hour route.
Yeah. Especially if you're on the other side of the lake or something
Right.
that's real far, yeah.
So being fully staffed, though, wouldn't potentially bring that cost down, the higher, because you don't have enough people?
Just don't have enough trucks, or we have too many lane miles and not enough, yeah. Yeah, and then we have, all the little dirt roads, the camp roads, that the town took, and really got no more money to do it.
So it looks like fuel was down this year, at this point. You've spent less than anticipated, but is that due to, you had some vacancies this summer? Less equipment probably on the roads? Was it not this summer? Am I not remembering correctly?
No, we've been.
You've been fully staffed? Oh, last
Yeah,
summer,
we've
I'm
been-
already a year behind.
We've been full all
Sorry.
year.
Yeah,
Well, down one person for a little bit,
but not too long.
but not much, yeah.
Okay. Well, we had less road work to do this year, so that's
We
probably.
had less money to do it with.
Yeah, that's what I mean, so. So that mean, I'm just thinking
We had
what.
plenty of road work.
Yes, it's a fair point. It's a good distinction. No, I'm just trying to say what drove that number down,
Yeah.
that's all. Just making sure I understand
We
it.
weren't hauling a lot of material, we were doing a lot of labor work and,
Yep,
brush cutting and ditching and
things, not a lot of
short haul
trucking.
stuff, right? Yep. And we're still not done.
Always more to do. Amazing it doesn't go away.
On sand and stone and salt, we spent way under, but it was a relatively mild winter. Is that right? But you're guessing again to go up to 60,000?
I'm hoping right now that,
One storm.
yeah, it doesn't snow until the next budget, because if it does, things aren't gonna look so pretty.
Yeah, the other thing to remember with that sand and salt, that's half a winter.
Right.
Per budget,
So that's-
roughly speaking.
Right, it's this season and,
Yeah.
right. so
Because it splits the winter season, the budget cycle does. So that can be a bit
Right, it's hard to look at it. Everybody looks at a calendar year and
Yeah,
it's not,
yeah. Thank you.
Did we not do any drug testing this year? Just curious, or is it getting done?
$49 worth.
I know.
One person.
That depends on hiring too. Isn't that
Yeah,
what drives the
and
drug testing?
something got screwed up there, but it got straightened out, so everybody went at once.
Okay.
And I don't believe that's on there yet.
Oh, it hasn't come in yet?
That fear was done at the end of the year or something.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
And then after that, it's random, so it's not up to us as to who goes, so it's.
DOT, just give me a call, or DOL, or
Imagine
whoever
it's
it
the
is.
company that we have that.
Oh, okay, that's who
They
does
put
it.
us in a pool and,
Yeah, gotcha.
yep. The only thing we have to do is the hiring part.
And how's your little rest box working for you for did that work out last year? I
Better than nothing.
Storage box.
Well, it's better than nothing. I mean, it's not ideal, but it's better than nothing.
And the guys did use it?
Oh, yeah. Yep. They have, coffee, they can go over there, make coffee. We got a refrigerator in there. They have a
Not
table,
sitting
they
right
can
in the
sit down,
garage.
they can sit down and eat. They can rest a few minutes if they choose to. There's, they can make a meal. There's a microwave, toaster oven, that kind of stuff.
And again, at least they're out of the
There you go.
garage, right?
It's better than nothing, just couches and chairs and recliners. It's a little tight, but it works. It's better than sleeping in your truck.
So there was under salary part-time, last year was approved 6,000. Over 15,000 was used, and you're requesting 18,000. Why the change?
That's the extra truck that we bought, a driver for that. The reason I was over on last year's budget for the part-time is because we didn't have, at that time, we didn't have a full garage of full-time guys. So we were using part-time guys to fill that. So if the math overall on labor
Yeah,
is within the budget, it's just more on this side and less on that side.
got it.
So yeah, it looks like you're gonna be coming in pretty well under on your full-time salary line this year. Cause you're at what, 234 right now, but,
There it is, okay.
But I'm over on the part-time.
yeah.
Is the overtime unavoidable?
Yeah. I mean, overtime for us is PD calling for a tree down, or road closure for an accident, or snow,
Yeah.
or floods, or mud season. All that stuff is Mother Nature or somebody greater and above me.
Living in New England.
Not like you're scheduling overtime to do extra projects or anything. This is
No,
all
absolutely not.
This is all emergency
The only
response
time
type stuff.
we'll ever have any overtime for something like that is there again, if we have a rental piece of equipment. Like we did shoulder graveling, which for us to do it in-house with material that's ours and our trucks and our labor saves a lot over hiring somebody to do it. But you still have to rent the machine. Well, when you rent the machine, you try to use it as much as you possibly can. So you don't want to be transporting it on rental time. You kind of you'd rather be putting down shoulder gravel. So something like that possibly, you might do a couple hours of overtime, but even that we didn't.
Small percentage even if it's.
Small. Yeah, the only time we're gonna be into overtime is for emergency, or a call out for PD or something.
Uniform cleaning seemed to have doubled, but
So it didn't help.
now we got more guys on there.
Well, let's cross our fingers that fuel prices stay low.
Yeah, they're good now.
Could help a little.
So in the bottom highway totals, it said 87,020 increase. I just did some rough numbers. I only came up with 67,000, so I lost 20,000 somewhere. And I guess I'm just thinking out loud more than anything, but I got 12,000 for overtime, 35. For plowing, 15, 3,000.
So I see you got, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Thought done?
My thought's done.
Okay.
My rambling's done. If you can find $20,000.
I'll let you know what I find. The TBD on the road and the seal coat, if that's something you're actively working on with the select board? Is that, trying to figure out maybe what you want to put there, if anything, this year? Or
Right.
how you're going to go about roads going forward? Is that
Right.
a new, yeah, okay. So that might need, well, I mean, the roads need some repair every year, always. So something's going to need to go there. The idea is it's just still being worked on.
Yeah, if you look at the 2023 budget, it was 200,000.
Yeah.
2023, I think we had 3 highway workers for about 6 months. of the
Right.
Summer times, nothing got done.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a feeling if you look at 2022, it was close to $180,000 was spent on Shimmin's seal coat. It just hasn't been spent.
Yeah.
It needs to,
Yes, absolutely.
and that's why there was a warrant article for another portion of it.
Yeah, yeah. That was the 400 remaining or whatever that didn't pass. I'm just curious, will you have an idea of when you guys are thinking that TBD might be filled?
So we're gonna work on getting the final number as far as with the tax rate. Using
Oh,
assumption and then
okay.
saying, okay,
Whatever
this is how
else
much
you
money
can
we
possibly
have
find.
to spend on warrant articles and on a budget increase. Because again, everybody gets obsessed with the budget being 4%. It's not, it has nothing to do with the dollar amount. It's all in the tax cap, so.
Which also
Get
could
the
be
warrant
offset by
articles.
revenue, because that's all
Right.
part of the
That's
that's all
of the-
part of the calculation
Right.
too. But it's operating budget plus warrants minus revenue times 0.04, and there's your number. Anything else for Steve while we got him here?
How's the grader working?
Is it one?
Oh, no.
Already?
I hauled it in today and dropped it off, and and they gave us a loaner to use.
Okay, well, that's
Oh,
something.
that's what was down on Siemens Point then the other
Well, I
day.
mean, it's a rental, but I mean, it's a pennies on the dollar compared to renting one,
Yeah,
so.
well, that wasn't the news I wanted. I thought you were gonna say, well, yeah, we gotta.
Me too.
It's great.
I think we figured out what the problem is now, though. But I've also thought that a couple times before.
Maybe wait to see you proven right before you start telling everybody you got it.
Yeah.
It's probably a good call.
Well, I appreciate it. I've seen a lot of your guys on Deerfield Road, so.
Yep, that was the one we had a little money left over from last year that we could actually work on. But, I mean, we've done a lot of work everywhere else too, so.
Yeah, Camp roads have been hitting pretty hard.
Yep.
It's nice seeing the roller out there.
Yep.
Not just pushing stuff with the grader around.
They're looking pretty good.
No, that's probably the better way to do them, is to grade them and roll them.
Yes, it is.
We didn't have the money for the roller, but fortunately I had one, so I donated one, but, so it's,
Thank you.
yeah, it makes a better road.
It seems to hold up nicely.
Yeah.
When
It
you're
makes such a
driving over it.
difference.
So,
Well, thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Steve. Really appreciate it.
all right,
Thanks, Steve.
have a good night.
Yeah.
So I will say I know the last budget committee meeting, Ellen had said that the transmission went in the police cruiser was gonna cost $7,000 to fix.
Jesus.
It's covered under warranty, so the farm was able to get forward, even though the warranty was over, we're over mileage.
They got it.
They honored it.
Good.
Because the town is such good customers with Ford, they said.
Indeed, as it should be.
That's a plus.
It's not because fawn is scary.
It's probably, I would say that's what it is, they didn't want to admit it in an email.
I wouldn't. She went in there, gave him what for? Beautiful. That's awesome. That's great. Glad she was able to do that. So we will switch to meeting minutes from 10:24. I greatly appreciate everybody carrying on while I ran around in the mountains and tried to find signal and could not. So that was a fun afternoon, but lovely weather. Pennsylvania is very nice, just not very populated where we were, which is sort of the point. Only thing I caught, obviously I wasn't here, but I watched it all after the fact, which turns out is way worse than being here. Watch, that is boring to watch as opposed to even sitting here. I was impressed. Even caring, I was like, boy, this is a little rough. I think Sandra was excused. I saw there was some email traffic on that, so that does need to be adjusted. But in terms of overall, I didn't catch anything. When I scanned this, whatever it was, 2 days ago when it got sent out, did anybody have anything they wanted to
I had a question for
didn't see anything in
clarification.
there.
On line 107, it says, much like with the town's interest rates, school board insurance, I thought. So interest, on 107, interest should be changed to health insurance.
Good job. Anybody have anything else?
Nope.
So,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended
Second?
for October 24th. budget
motion by Tim DeBrio. Sorry, somebody.
Seconded by Jeff
Jeff.
Wilson.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Where'd my notes go? I think I've lost them a dozen times today. Then finalization of operating procedures. You guys got the updated, slightly more,
Looks very nice.
Looks good.
thank
Look at
you.
those page numbers.
I know, right? They even go in order. Got crazy and actually kind of got them to work. Roman numerals.
Oh, that's good. It's so classy.
Let's get it going. Now, Karen had a couple of grammatical items she noted. Nothing of any sort of substantive change, adding the in a few places, crossing out. Yeah, missing an A in front of a word, you know, those types of things. So I wrote those down. Did anybody have any other adjustments based on the conversations? I got notes from Donna, and then after reviewing the minutes, I also kind of grabbed Donna's notes and then did the final updates. So my thought is, because there are just a couple of changes left, I'll make those before the next meeting. And then, which is Thursday, so only in 2 days, so
Day after
I will get working on it. But my thought is, if there aren't any other comments, then we can sign it all and ratify it. Then I just want to make the last couple of minor, grammatical edits prior to actually signing the document.
Thank you for your work on this. This is nice.
Yeah, it's very good.
No, I think everybody worked at it, which was great, and I think we got a good product at the end. We didn't get bylaws, we got operating procedures, which was a very good conversation. Made a lot of sense. Excellent, so I will make those couple of edits, I'll try to get that out as timely as I can tomorrow, just so people can give it one last look before the Thursday, but we'll just have that final version printed off and we can all sign it, and it will be formal and official. So good work, everybody. I know it's a real big lift doing it for the first time, so appreciate everybody's efforts. Going forward, it'll be obviously a lot simpler. Any subcommittee reports?
CIP. since
Same
last
here
time.
with school facilities. We haven't had any meetings since we were here last.
Easy enough. Best subcommittee reports I've heard yet. Any other business to bring before the board?
Make a motion to adjourn our meeting.
9:13, motion by Tim, second by Charlotte. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes 9-0. Thank you, everybody.